So I'm driving around with a guy in a Speedo and a cop in the back, drinking beers and I'm just like, I want to get this sale over with. So I sold one car in the Virgin Islands and all went great. So I was like, let's try this again. So I moved down with my best friend for 2 months. We were planning to stay down there and bring a bunch of cars with us. I just kind of wanted to see how it would go actually stocking inventory down there. So I brought some unlikely cars, mainly because they were a lot of my personal ones and I didn't, if there was any issue with paperwork, I was there. It wasn't a big deal. I brought down my grandfather's V6 Mustang that he bought brand new. It was like the worst spec new edge possible, automatic V6, beige interior, convertible, like just the worst Mustang in history. But it had no miles and was a great car and I knew it wouldn't break down. So that was one that I wanted to sell on the chopping block. I brought my 200,000 mile E350 Mercedes that I was dailying, again, just because I knew it wasn't going to break down. It was a really solid car. I bought an F250 off of a kid in Long Island because my plan was to actually tow one of the cars down and drive another. So we use this F250 to tow, and I get there and the kid tells me it's, the motor might have a knock. It's, it's something with the motor. And I was like, yeah, it's a 5.4. Of course it has a knock. I get there and he starts it and it's chugging, and I open the hood and it's a 7.3 diesel. So I was like, how much did you want for this truck again? He said, $300. I said, no problem. So I paid him $300 and we used the diesel to tow down a fourth car, which was a Mercedes 380 SL, 1981. Beautiful car, baby blue. Don't know why I wanted to bring that to the Virgin Islands, but it was a cool car to have. And the fourth car was a Mopar 11 edition Dodge Charger RT. Again, from a friend, paperwork in order, reliable car, wasn't gonna break, I had to bring it. The way it went was we had sent 2 cars down. It was the E-Class and the Dodge Charger on a tow truck before I had went down with the F250, towing the 380 and driving the Mustang all together. Those 2 cars arrived first, like 2 or 3 days after we had gotten there. It was perfect timing. So we went out and picked them up. We had them towed away because you need something called a moving permit. It's essentially exactly what you think. The second the car lands there, you have to go get a temp tag, which they call a moving permit. Your US plates are valid outside of the US for 1 year, so not a lot of people do that. So we just picked up the cars on a tow truck and brought them out of the shipyard and had them in the Virgin Islands. Now, the next cars came probably a week later, and 2 of them were released relatively quickly, and one of them, the SL, just kind of sat in the customs car jail, like with another few cars just all the way in the corner aside from everyone else. When we were picking up the Mercedes and the Charger left first and the Mercedes was being dragged out when somebody came out from Crowley saying, no, stop. That car needs a moving permit to leave here. I said, no, it doesn't. It's being towed. It doesn't need a moving permit. Why would it need a moving permit? It's not being driven. It goes, well, the lady who runs the DMV, yes, there's one lady, it's the Virgin Islands. The lady who runs the DMV called me and said that car can't leave without a moving permit. So I was like, that is BS. I've done it once. Everyone else has done this many times. He actually put it on speakerphone, and I was talking to the lady who ran the DMV, and she said that car needs a moving permit. I said, no, it doesn't. Check the rule book. So we argued back and forth. I said, check the rule book, and she pulled up the rule book, and she starts reading from it directly, and it says, any vehicle leaving the shipping yard or whatever on its own power must have a moving permit. I said, yeah, on its own power. I'll push it. And that did not go over well. I was legally correct, and she said, well, you do that then. The next week, I came in to go pick up the other 2 cars, and she changed the laws in the entire island because I pissed her off. So there's a sign now on the wall saying any vessel with a vehicle identification number, serial number, or anything must have a moving permit. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. What if it's a dealership? Like, you don't have to get a moving permit, you have to go treat it like a real temp tag. You have to put this car on your personal insurance over there, register it, you got to get a temp tag for it. That was not the case with dealer cars or project cars, or what if a car didn't have an engine? She didn't care. She made this change, and that day, the St. Thomas groups on Facebook were blowing up with dealers like, I've been doing business here since 1970. I just went to pick up my inventory. They said they have to be added to my personal insurance. Made no sense. We were in like a real kind of issue with that, and I'm calling everyone who cared to speak to me, and I'm like, so if we have a project car that doesn't have an engine and will never run again, or even a parts car that we're taking parts off of, you're telling me I have to go add it to my personal insurance and get a temp tag for it? And Yeah, the answer was just yes. Dude, well, that's what the DMV lady said, and what she said goes. We were like, crap, we had to go actually add these cars to our personal insurance. Now, luckily, with the insurance card, we were able to just, with no problem, go to the DMV and get the moving permits. The SL was the only car that wasn't released, and I was still trying to figure out why. And for a whole nother week, nobody told me anything until finally I went down there and they said, that car's back there because they found bullets in it. And I went, what do you mean bullets? Yeah, there were shotgun shells in the back seat, in the back floor area. I didn't clean the car out that well. I kind of just picked it up from a mechanic, brought it over there, lesson learned. So I'm like, all right, it's a bullet. Like, what's the big deal? I went, and the guy tells me, that's a very big deal. I don't think you understand. Like, there's a reason that car is in car jail. So I went home and I looked it up, and the just possession of ammunition in St. Thomas, the penalty is a minimum mandatory 25 years in jail for just ammunition, no gun. So I'm like, this could really be a problem. So, because my name's on the shipping docs, like I'm responsible for everything in the car, and there's bullets in the car. So this was a Friday, and I'm going down to the port trying to get all the information I can. Like, am I gonna go to jail for 25 years down here? Like, it's 90 degrees, it's too hot for jail. So the lady tells me, like, yeah, no, this really, like, you're gonna have to talk to the right people. So the whole weekend I was stressing, and then they called me back on Monday, and they were like, we're gonna need you to open this trunk. We can't get the trunk open. Now I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that one. You gotta like turn and like press it a few times and it'll pop open. But now they found bullets in the car and they can't get the trunk open. So they called me back to the port, and I go there, and there was like 7 alcohol, tobacco, firearms agents, like Homeland Security. Like, there is agents all around this car, and they're like hand on the hip waiting for me to open this trunk up, just waiting to pull out their gun in case anything happened. So I opened it and showed them how to do it, and there was nothing in there. And I'm like, all right, so can we get back to the whole 25 years in jail thing? Like, am I facing that? It's Monday, can I get some answers? They're like, we'll let you know. I mean, this is gonna have to be referred to like the prosecutor and stuff. I'm like, do I leave the country now before the prosecutor knows? Like, do I just leave all the cars here? What do I do? So everyone's telling me like, yeah, get out of the country. And I just didn't. I was like, I can't leave this many cars here. I mean, I don't want to do 25 years in jail, but it's not really going to happen. So I started calling lawyers out there. The first lawyer I spoke to said, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. So I kind of stayed, and absolutely nothing came of that. Thank you for the weekend-long heart attack. And they eventually released the SL out. Everything about selling those cars was as interesting as the Virgin Islands itself. The F-250 was the first car we actually showed. And when I say the hardest test drive I've ever seen in my life, like spinning tires uphill, blowing black smoke, like just the crazy, and I'm like telling this kid to calm down. It was 3 kids in a 2-seater truck and with me. So that was a very tight cab in there. They ended up not buying the truck, unsurprisingly. The Mustang was the most interesting sale though, because it got a lot of bites. It was a 33,000 mile car, 2004, and it was very, very clean. And you know, convertible, I figured would be good down there. It got a lot of bites, but it wasn't until I met this one very eccentric couple in their version of like a BJ's Costco parking lot. And the guy came in like Speedo shorts, like woman shorts, and the wife came in some crazy tie-dye outfit, and they were extremely eccentric. He goes, you know, I just want to make sure this car can do the hill up to my driveway, and can we take it up this one hill that every car overheats up? And I was like, yeah, no problem. It's not going to overheat going up the hill. Let's do it. Was a 10-minute test drive up this one hill turned into a solid hour, but they had cash and they were ready. So I was putting myself through it. I was out there for one reason, to do this, so I put myself through it. And no, let me just go see if it makes this entrance ramp, and see if it'll make this road, and see if it can do this, that, and the other thing. Finally, we're on the way back. He sees a cop that he knows at a red light. Now, drinking and driving is like legal there. Like, they have signs that say drink and drive responsibly. All the cops are drinking beers. It's like a very weird place. So this cop is like, hey, what are you doing? Go, you're distracted on the road, because he sees him like on his cell phone during the test drive. And they knew each other. And he's like, oh, I'm looking at buying this Mustang, like hop in. So the cop gets in the back seat of the Mustang. And the guy had a beer in the couple. So I'm driving around with a guy in a Speedo and a cop in the back drinking beers in a Mustang. I'm just like, I want to get this sale over with. So the guy's like, you want to go have some lunch at my spot? I work at this restaurant. Let's go to the spot. It's a really nice spot. Okay, if it means I can get paid, sure. So the wife meets us there. The wife had the cash on her. So I was like, let's go do this. Awesome. They said yes. They took it, passed with everything flying colors. And then it came time to go pay me, and I had to leave in 10 days. And she comes and pays me $6,700 in rolled up waitress tip money, like ones, fives, and tens. I'm like holding this, like, how am I gonna go through security with this? Like, what do you want me to do? I ended up soaking all the bills in the bathroom and putting them out on the counter, so when they dried, they were like flat and crisp. That's the only way I got them home, and I was spending as many as possible. The SL, super interesting. We had Irish guy and a British guy come in together. They were friends from the British Virgin Islands. They flew in, didn't even check the car out, $8,500, took it immediately. That was actually the first car to really sell, even before the Mustang, and that one sold immediately. I mean, that was the most fun car to drive around there, topless, sickest pictures I've ever gotten. Happy to get rid of it. So the E350, I had actually sold to somebody from St. Croix, and they were arranging shipping. I said, no problem, I'll leave it at my friend's rental car office. You could pick it up when I'm not here. They paid in full for the car, $7,500. For a 200,000 mile E-Class. Didn't even try to negotiate. I had it up there because I was expecting to sell it for $5,000 maybe. Didn't even try to negotiate. She paid in full, never heard from her again. It's been a year and a half. The car is still sitting in the Virgin Islands at my friend's rental place. I haven't been able to get a hold of her. So if you know anyone from St. Croix who bought an E-Class a year ago and wonder where it is, it's still there waiting for her. Charger, I ended up selling to somebody from a town 1.5 miles away from me. So that got put back on a boat, and he gave me my asking price. That was a mistake. Oh, the F-250 I ended up just selling to a mechanic because I'm almost certain from those kids' hard test drive, it just started, I mean, spewing diesel fuel everywhere. So I gave up. I sold it to a mechanic for cheap, and I mean, we still profited, but I had to get rid of it. So, you know, after everything was said and done and I only had the Charger left, took it over to St. John, and there's one road that kind of splits off, and it turns into a one-way all around the island, and it's about as wide as the car. Drifting that in a Charger was the most fun thing I've ever done. If you want a really eventful 2 months, bring some cars to the Virgin Islands and try to sell them. You will meet the most interesting people and leave just really thankful for like flat ground and front lawns and stuff, because I missed that after a few months.
If you get a ticket, the first thing you should do is text a picture of it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. You'll be facing costly fines, risks of suspension, possible jail time, points on your license, higher insurance premiums, and a lot of bad things that they can help you to avoid. You can also find them at the link in the description below, but the Ticket Clinic is a nationwide law firm with brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they've got attorneys everywhere, and that's what's most important, because a local attorney will know exactly how the local laws work, know the people who are in charge, and get you the best outcome possible. So text a picture of your ticket to 305-305 or click the link in the description below to fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.